Look at this car. Fastest production sedan ever made. 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. Quieter than a library. Cleaner than a conscience. At least that's what they tell you. The media calls it the future. Your neighbor calls it a flex. Elon calls it a revolution. But here's what nobody tells you at the dealership. Right now, underneath the sleek hood of this machine, there are thousands of individual battery cells packed so tightly together under so much electrochemical stress that if just one of them fails, the whole thing can turn into something no fire department on Earth is truly prepared to stop. Today, we're going deep, not to scare you away from EVs, but because if you own one or plan to buy one, you deserve the full picture. The physics, the cybersecurity vulnerabilities, the data they're harvesting, the economic trap that's coming for your wallet years down the road. I'm going to show you exactly why these silent machines might be the most misunderstood and most underestimated risks on the road in 2026. Stay with me. This one's going to change how you look at that charging cable. Why this matters now. We're in 2026. There are now over 40 million electric vehicles on roads worldwide. That number is doubling every 4 years. EV manufacturers are in an arms race, not for safety, but for range and performance. Battery energy density has increased by 40% in the last 5 years. That sounds amazing. It also means the potential energy stored under your seat is growing, and growing fast. Meanwhile, the infrastructure around these cars, the regulations, the emergency response training, the insurance models, the resale market is lagging years behind. This is a story about that gap and what it means for you. Physics of catastrophe. What is thermal runaway? Let's start with what's actually happening inside your battery pack when things go wrong. Modern EV batteries are lithium-ion cells, the same basic chemistry as your phone, but scaled up by a factor of thousands. Each cell stores energy in a chemically unstable state. Under normal conditions, cooling systems and battery management software keep everything in balance. But push the chemistry too hard, through a manufacturing defect, a collision, extreme temperature, overcharging, or even just aging, and a single cell can go into what engineers call thermal runaway. Here's where it gets terrifying. That one failing cell generates heat. That heat accelerates the chemical reaction. The accelerated reaction generates more heat. Within seconds, you have a cascade, a chain reaction that can spread from cell to cell across the entire 400-kilogram battery pack. The numbers that should shock you. The temperature inside a lithium-ion battery during thermal runaway can reach 2,500 degrees Celsius. That's not a typo. 2,500 degrees Celsius. For context, aluminum, the material many car chassis are made from, melts at 660 degrees Celsius. Steel melts at 1,400 degrees Celsius. The fire inside your EV's battery can melt steel. And here's what makes it uniquely dangerous compared to a regular car fire. Lithium batteries are self-oxidizing. That means the chemical reaction produces its own oxygen. You cannot smother it. You cannot cut off its air supply. The fire feeds itself. Standard car fire, 2,000 liters of water, done in minutes. EV battery fire, we're talking up to 100,000 liters. That's a backyard swimming pool, and it can take hours. Sometimes the car has to be physically submerged in a water-filled container and left there for 48 to 72 hours because the battery can spontaneously reignite 3 days later. The 2026 problem. Denser is more dangerous. Now, here's what makes this a 2026 problem specifically, and not just a 2016 problem. The industry is in a battery arms race. To compete on range and performance, manufacturers are cramming more energy into smaller, lighter battery packs. The energy density of modern batteries has increased dramatically just in the past few years. More energy density means more potential thermal runaway energy. The thermal management systems are getting more sophisticated, but also more complex. More components, more points of failure, more software dependencies. And consumer behavior is making it worse. People have fast charging constantly, using their cars in extreme temperatures, buying third-party accessories that bypass built-in protections. Every one of those behaviors is stress on a system that's already operating close to its limits. Real cases, the headlines they buried. In 2024 alone, there were over 3,000 documented EV fires in the United States. That's not counting the unreported incidents in private parking structures. A parking garage in Stavanger, Norway. A single EV catches fire on the bottom level. The heat is so intense and the fire so difficult to contain that 13 other cars are destroyed, most of them not even electric. The garage suffers structural damage from temperatures no architect ever designed it to handle. A freighter ship crossing the North Sea loses 26 vehicles, including several EVs, in a fire that burns for 4 days before the crew is forced to abandon ship. These are not fringe events. These are symptoms of a system where the technology has outpaced the safety infrastructure around it. Deadly weight and the Titanic effect. Let's talk about something that doesn't make headlines but affects every single car on the road around you. Electric vehicles are heavy, extremely heavy. The average EV weighs 30 to 50% more than its gasoline equivalent. A Tesla Model Y, 2,100 kilograms. Its direct competitor, a Toyota RAV4, 1,600 kilograms. That's 500 kilograms of extra weight, essentially carrying a grand piano in your trunk at all times. The GMC Hummer EV, 3.5 tons. That's heavier than most dump trucks from the 1980s. Why does this matter? Because weight is a fundamental variable in collision physics. In a crash, it's not just speed that determines outcomes, it's momentum. And momentum is mass times velocity. The asymmetric crash, who loses? In 2023, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety began flagging something alarming in their crash data. When heavier vehicles collide with lighter ones, the occupant death rate in the lighter vehicle has been climbing for the first time in 2 decades. We've been making cars safer for the people inside them, but we haven't solved the problem of a 3-ton electric SUV running into a 1,200-kilogram compact sedan driven by someone who couldn't afford the premium EV price tag. That's not a car crash, that's a physics execution. And the problem compounds in urban environments, where pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcyclists are sharing space with these increasingly massive machines. A pedestrian struck by a heavier vehicle faces dramatically worse injury outcomes. The physics don't care about good intentions. Infrastructure that wasn't built for this. Here's a problem that city planners are only beginning to grapple with. Most multi-story parking garages in Europe and North America were built 30 to 50 years ago. Their structural load calculations were based on the cars that existed at the time, average weights of 1,000 to 1,400 kilograms. Now fill those garages with 2,000 to 3,500 kilogram electric vehicles. Multiple reports from structural engineering firms have flagged parking structures in major cities as potentially unsafe for the EV loads they're already carrying. In 2023, a parking structure in Liverpool collapsed. While the official investigation pointed to pre-existing structural issues, engineers noted that the increasingly heavy modern vehicle fleet was a contributing stress factor. The green lie hiding in the tire dust. And then there's the environmental irony that nobody in the EV marketing department wants to talk about. Tires wear out faster on heavier vehicles, significantly faster. And tire wear doesn't produce exhaust, it produces something arguably worse: microplastic particles. Studies published in peer-reviewed journals have found that EVs generate up to 20% more microplastic particles than equivalent gasoline vehicles. These particles are small enough to become airborne. They enter waterways. They've been found in human bloodstreams. The car that produces no tailpipe emissions may be producing more ground-level particulate pollution than the dirty car it replaced. The full picture of clean transportation is more complicated than a green badge on a marketing brochure. Digital captivity, hackers, and surveillance. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine if someone could unlock your front door from the other side of the planet, start your engine, read your texts, track everywhere you've been for the past year. You'd call that a terrifying invasion of privacy. Now imagine that thing is your car, because that is exactly what your car is in 2026. Modern EVs are rolling supercomputers. They contain between 50 and 100 individual electronic control units. They're connected to the internet 24/7. They receive over-the-air software updates while you sleep. And like every connected computer in history, they can be hacked. What hackers can actually do? In 2025, a team of cybersecurity researchers at a European university demonstrated that they could remotely access a popular EV model's central control system within 11 minutes using equipment available for under $200 online. Once inside, they could unlock all doors, disable the braking assist system, manipulate the cruise control, access the navigation history, including home address, work address, every location visited in the past 6 months. They could do this silently, with no warning light on the dashboard, with no indication to the driver that anything was wrong. This wasn't a theoretical exercise. They reported their findings to the manufacturer. It took 11 months for a patch to be deployed. During those 11 months, that vulnerability existed in every vehicle of that model on the road. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most EV owners have no idea what software version their car is running, whether it's received its latest security patches, or even how to check. The surveillance machine in your driveway. But hacking isn't even the biggest privacy concern. The bigger issue is what manufacturers are collecting by design. Your EV knows where you go, when you leave, how fast you drive, how hard you brake, who's in the car with you based on seat sensors, what you say because the microphone is always on for voice commands, what music you listen to, what your heart rate is if it has health sensors, and it sends all of that data to corporate servers in real time, continuously. The average modern EV generates between 25 and 100 gigabytes of data per hour of driving. That is more data collection per hour than most people generate in a month on their phones. Tesla's privacy policy, for example, explicitly states that they may share your data with third parties for commercial purposes. You agreed to this when you clicked through the terms of service on the touchscreen. The economic trap. Let's talk money, because the financial risks of EV ownership are as significant as the physical ones, and they're even less discussed. Conventional wisdom says cars depreciate. EVs depreciate faster, much faster. A gasoline car loses roughly 50% of its value in the first 5 years. A comparable EV can lose 60 to 70% in the same period, and some models have depreciated even more aggressively. Why? Because EV value is almost entirely tied to battery health, and battery health degrades over time. When a prospective buyer looks at a 5-year-old EV with 80% battery capacity remaining, they're not just thinking about the car, they're thinking about the inevitable battery replacement. And that replacement? On most vehicles, it costs between 40 and 60% of the car's original purchase price. The charging infrastructure illusion. The pitch is always the same. Charging infrastructure is expanding rapidly. There are more chargers than ever. The network is growing. All of that is true in city centers of wealthy countries, in Silicon Valley, in Oslo, in Shanghai's new districts. But drive 3 hours from any major city in the Midwest of America, in rural Canada, in Eastern Europe and the countries of the former Soviet Union, and the picture changes completely. In January 2024, a cold snap hit the Chicago area. Temperatures dropped to minus 20% Celsius. EV owners discovered that lithium-ion batteries lose up to 40% of their range in extreme cold. Charging queues at the few available stations stretched for hours. Vehicles that had made it to a charger couldn't charge efficiently in the cold. Some owners were stranded. This wasn't an infrastructure failure in the traditional sense. It was a perfect illustration of the gap between EV technology as it performs in optimal conditions and EV technology as it performs in the real world. The dirty origins of clean energy. Here's the question nobody asks at the clean energy panel. Where does the lithium come from? The Atacama Desert in Chile contains the world's largest lithium reserves. Extracting it requires massive quantities of water in one of the driest places on Earth. Indigenous communities have watched their water supplies depleted. Flamingo populations have collapsed. The landscape has been transformed permanently. The Democratic Republic of Congo supplies over 70% of the world's cobalt, another essential EV battery component. Child labor in artisanal cobalt mines has been documented extensively by human rights organizations. The conditions are brutal. The pay is pennies. The age of many workers is single digits. The supply chains of the largest EV manufacturers pass through these regions. When you charge your car, the electricity may be clean,
But the battery in your car carries a different kind of environmental and human cost, one that's rarely included in the marketing. The total cost of ownership, what the calculator misses. The EV sales pitch often includes a total cost of ownership calculator. It factors in fuel savings, lower maintenance costs, potential tax incentives. What it doesn't factor in, the accelerated depreciation, the eventual battery replacement, the insurance premiums, which are already 20 to 30% higher for EVs than equivalent gasoline vehicles due to higher repair costs and battery replacement risk, the home charging installation, the time cost of charging on long trips. For many buyers, the math works. In cities, for high-mileage drivers, in countries with strong charging infrastructure and generous subsidies, EVs can be genuinely economical. For others, the total cost of ownership over 10 years may significantly exceed what they were told, and they won't find out until it's too late to return the car. The bigger picture. Electric vehicles are not the enemy. They are not a conspiracy. They are a technology. And like all technologies, they carry trade-offs, risks, and unintended consequences alongside their genuine benefits. The story of EVs is not binary. It's not EVs are perfect and gasoline is evil. It's not EVs are dangerous and we should go back to horses. It's more nuanced than either of those takes, and you deserve more nuance than either of those takes. The transition to electric mobility is happening. The question isn't whether to participate. For most people, within a decade, there won't be much of a choice. The question is whether you participate as someone who's been informed about the real trade-offs, or as someone who was sold a dream without reading the terms and conditions. The future is electric, but it belongs to people who understand it, not just people who bought into it. If this video made you think, even if it made you uncomfortable, that's the point. The best decisions come from the fullest picture. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. We cover cars, technology, and money without the PR spin. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Drop a comment. Do you own an EV? Are you thinking about buying one? What's your take after watching this? I read every comment. Share this with one person who's considering an EV purchase, not to talk them out of it, just to make sure they go in with eyes open. Stay sharp, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.